Hey everybody, Mr. Harvey here. Let's rock and roll. We're going to talk about the cottage industry, and we're going to talk about how this industry was the precursor. This is like pre-industrial revolution in England. Okay, here we go. So when we last left off, we were talking about the agricultural revolution, specifically in England. Okay, and I really for the next couple of for this chapter, outside of like family life and the ancient regime, we're going to start focusing more on England because the agricultural revolution was really, even though it starts in the Netherlands, it's really centered around England because it's going to blow up in England on a bigger level, and the cottage industry is going to blow up in England, and the industrial revolution is going to start in England. Okay, so really, really be thinking about the context of England right now. Okay. Um, when we last left off about the agricultural revolution, one of the big effects of the agricultural revolution was the fact that farmers are being kicked off their land and they are suddenly have no job. And the cottage industry is going to kind of be scoot in and develop in this rural area enterprise because a lot of farmers don't want to move to the cities unless they have to, and so the cottage industry is going to be a way for ex farmers to kind of make some money and still stay in the rural areas. Okay, and this is an industry and this was an industry and enterprise that was a precursor to the industrial revolution. Uh, like I said, we're going to see the rural populations be in the face of losing land, try to supplement their income, and we're going to see merchants merchants are really going to exploit this cheap labor in rural areas to make some money. And well, why were these peasants so cheap? Why was this labor so cheap in rural areas? Well, these people had no job. Beggars can't be choosers. They're not going to be able to have a lot of negotiating power in their, and they have no job. So they're going to work for low wages. And merchants are going to, throw them a whole bunch of raw materials to start making clothes out in the countryside. And that's why it's just called the putting out cottage industry because this is an industry that will start in the cottages in the countryside, putting out clothes in the countryside. Okay, how did it work? Well, a merchant is going to get a whole bunch of raw materials, cotton, wool. Cotton is going to be wool. Wool is going to be the first material which we see makes textiles, but later on it's going to be cotton, and we know that cotton, as we discussed before, is a cash crop, and that's going to be largely developed in the southern part of the United States. That's why we're going to see slavery in the United States blow up. The Cotton Gin by Eli Whitney. Um, uh, it's Cotton is going to be the fabric used to make a lot of textiles because it's a lot softer than wool. And the way it worked was a merchant is going to give a family raw materials like cotton or wool. The family is then going to spin that raw material into thread, like think about like yarn, a thread, and then they're going to weave that thread into a textile, cloth, shorts, not really shorts. I don't think they wore a lot of shorts back then, but pants, shirts, coats, you name it. Um, Washcloths, just kidding. Um, but then the merchant would take that finished product and sell it for a profit. Okay. And this is going to be a family enterprise. Everybody is going to play a part and play a certain part. And the typical roles in this enterprise were spinners and weavers. Okay. Now, what's a spinner and what's a weaver? I'm not an expert on making clothes, but the basic rundown is that you have spinners. The spinners were the people who would take the raw material, like a glob of cotton, they would separate it all, and they would spin it into a thread, like a string. Okay, in order to make clothes, you need a lot of thread, and a lot of string, yarn, etc. And so you need a lot more spinners than one weaver. Okay, because you need a lot of thread that makes up a shirt. If you look at your shirt right now, there's thousands upon thousands of threads all woven together. So you have 4 to 5 spinners who weave the raw materials into a thread, and then you have one person who will weave it. Okay. Now something interesting is that merchants didn't want to pay for that labor, even though it was cheap labor. They were thinking about you know ways to further lower the cost of having to produce these goods. And the highest cost was having to pay people. That was the highest cost of trying to produce these goods. So they're going to search for lower ways to lower cost to production, and that's going to eventually facilitate some of the first inventions and machines that are going to make textiles. They're going to be able to do the job that many humans could do, but you don't have to pay a machine. You just got to keep it energized. Okay, and the result of the cottage industry, we're going to see thousands of poor families be able to supplement their income. Okay, and many peasants are going to be exposed to capitalism and business. Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. All right, cottage industry is going to first flourish in England. Okay, and we're talking about that. It's going to be dealing with textiles, making clothes. Okay, by the 1700s, the majority of English textiles are going to be produced in the countryside in these cottages, and we're going to see, okay, the start of industrialization with this cottage industry. It's going to really be the precursor to it, and we're going to see important technology be developed, machines be developed that's going to signal the start of industrialization. We're going to see the John Kay's the flying shuttle, which is going to increase weaving production. It's going to do the job of multiple weavers in one machine. It's going to be able to do what multiple humans could do. I'm not sure the exact number of how much more it can produce than a single human, but it was quite a few. You're going to see James Hargreaves spinning jenny. This machine could mass produce more thread. It could do, I'm not sure the number, but it could do the job of multiple humans. And you just got to pay for the machine, keep it energized, and we're going to see people use the water wheel and eventually the steam engine. And this is a machine. You just got to keep it with coal, keep it running with coal, and you don't have to pay it. You just got to pay for that coal and pay for the machine, and it will eventually lower the cost of making textiles. Okay, and it's going to make them a lot faster. Okay, and Richard Arkwright, the water frame, which will improve thread production and will help bring textile production from the cottage to the factory. Now, important note we're going to start talking about factories. Okay, we're going to see with the water frame, we're going to see production of textiles go from the cottage to the first factories. Now, the first factories are going to be in a special place. They're going to be by sources of water. Why? Well, we haven't seen the steam engine be invented yet. So the water frame, water is going to be the first energy source, because if you have running water, you can put a water wheel in there. It'll spin that water wheel and can generate power and energy. And so the first factories are not going to be in cities. They're going to be off the sides of waterways. And England is an island, so there's a lot of water. And so we're going to see the first factories be by sources of water. All right, the Industrial Revolution, we're going to get started next. Stay tuned.